Hey everyone, Mike here and welcome back to the SimRacing Den. And this is the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Replica DDU from GRID Engineering. And if you're new to SimRacing and unfamiliar with this product type, a DDU stands for Dash Display Unit. In most modern race cars, you will find one of these. It lets you select different telemetry and data that needs to be monitored while racing. Drivers must keep an eye on many things and they need a visual representation of the various systems they can adjust in the car. For sim racing, a lot is the same for the virtual car. The advantages are the ability to customize what you see versus what the in-game DDU may offer you through different dash templates or making your own. It can also provide another level of immersion by having a physical device mounted in front of you, giving you a feeling of really sitting in the driver's seat more. Depending on how you set your in-game camera, you might be blocking the in-game dash, and a unit like this can help you get all that crucial information. Now, before I start, I should state that GRID was kind enough to send me this unit for review, and I thank them for sending it. But that does not influence my opinions or what I say in this video. They do not get to see this review before it goes up, and the views in this video are my own and from the perspective of a fellow sim racer. Now, however, that being said, I have to admit I obviously was very excited before even receiving this, because as you may know, if you've seen my other videos, I'm a huge fan of Porsche since I first saw and rode in one as a kid, and one of my big goals is to buy a 911 hopefully one day. So it's safe to say that when any sim racing hardware is presented as a replica of a Porsche 911 Cup Car Dash, I will already be very excited, and that will certainly weigh a bit on my first impressions. But still, I will also look at this from the perspective of someone who might not care about the branding, but I think it's safe to say that this display and GRID's Porsche RSR replica wheel obviously speak to a particular individual who probably already knew they wanted this the moment they saw it, because of its intention to replicate the real DDU in the 992 Cup car. I'm going to review this unit based on 4 different categories to help you decide if you want to spend your hard-earned money on this device. The first is performance, and most importantly, how does it function and perform as a sim racing dash display unit, regardless of the Porsche branding on it, and then how does it compare to other display units that I've used. The second is build quality. How does it look? What's the presentation of the product, the included accessories, and what is the overall feel and quality of the unit? Because at this price point for a dash display, I certainly have very high expectations. The third is compatibility. This includes mounting and software configuration. I'll be taking a look at a few different options, both using the included mount that installs directly to my SimiCube wheelbase. And we'll also see if it works with my Simcore Lev 1 universal dash mount, which I currently use to mount my GRID DDU5 dash display. The last category is fun factor. Sim racing for most is about having fun, right? So how does it increase the overall experience and immersion? And then at the end of the video, I'll give you my final thoughts and overall experience using the product, talk about the value for money, and whether I would purchase something like this for myself if it wasn't sent to me. And hopefully some of my thoughts will help you decide for yourself as well. So before we unbox this, let's quickly talk about the pricing. This dash display will set you back $549 in the US, and for my fellow Canadians that's about $744 at the time of making this video. Obviously this is not a cheap sim racing accessory, and there are indeed lots of other less expensive dash displays that are more commonly found in smaller sizes like 4-inch or 5-inch, so it's hard for me to make a comparison to those. Now I'm not aware of any other available consumer unit display of this same size, but definitely correct me in the comments if you're aware of one, of course. You could also attempt some DIY if you have the know-how and can source these parts, but not everyone has that ability, so I think the price makes sense when you consider the overall size, what this is all about in terms of being a Porsche replica unit, and the high quality materials that are used here. But let's unbox this now and start to get a better picture of what we're getting here. So I've got the top of the box off now, so I want to show you how nicely packaged this is. GRID typically uses this like high density black foam, and it just, the presentation of it, obviously a lot of it is to do with protecting it while shipping, but the presentation is really nice when you open it up. And it's just nicely, perfectly packed into this foam. Just gives it like a high-end feel. I don't know, maybe that's just subjective to me, but it's definitely a nice presentation, which is part of, I think the buying process and experience, right? So yeah, the display, I mean, it looks as big as I expected it to be, obviously. but it feels a little bit bigger now seeing it in real life. So I'll show you the back of the unit there. The casing feels really nice, like really nicely made. I mean, this feels like something automotive grade, you know, like this doesn't feel cheap or toy-like in any way. So on the bottom, you've got 3 connections required. So you'll need, and the cables are included here, which I'll show you, but you need a power connection, USB connection, as well as a HDMI connection, which is different from some of the other displays that I've used that are typically just USB, including GRID's DDU5. So I imagine this has something to do with the increased resolution that this needs. So speaking of resolution, it's 1920 by 720 pixels with a 60 hertz refresh rate. So it should look really nice, very smooth. So it's an LCD screen. The glass is actually what they say is like a scratch-proof glass, and the Porsche logo is silk screen onto that glass. So yeah, it looks really nice. Everything looks really nicely made. So let's take the plastic off here. So yeah, it looks really nice, guys. You know, just really impressed with the initial presentation. So let's take a look at what else is in the box. Just get rid of some plastic here. So there's a small black box here. And this, I'm assuming, includes, yeah, so these are your power adapters. They obviously have all the different international power adapters. And this probably includes our power lead. So that's your power there. And then let's take a look at some of the cables. So you do get a USB cable here. Looks like it's USB B to USB A. And let's just pull off the top packaging here. Just gonna set this over here. Oh wow, so this is actually a really nice, look at how nice this HDMI cable is. Like, it's nicely braided. Like, you know, you never get cables like this with like a lot of electronics or even sim racing hardware. So that's really nice to see. And what I like here is that it is actually an angled HDMI cable. So this should actually work quite nicely with the cable management when we hook this up. So yeah, really thought out from GRID in terms of the accessories included. So we have some mounting hardware here to mount to the base directly. I'm really hoping, like, at this point of filming this, I haven't actually tried mounting it yet, but I really hope it works with my Simcore dash mount. I really love that thing because I have all the different attachments, so you can change the distance of it, the angle. So when I change wheels or just change different cars and things like that, I can align my dash perfectly. Gives me a lot of flexibility. And my hope is that if this dash mounts to the same mount that the Simcore uses, I might order like 2 so that I can just swap out the DDU5 and the DDU10 really easily. Because what's nice about the Simcore unit is that you just need to unscrew these thumb tabs basically, or thumb screws, and then you can remove the unit really easily. So that's why I use that as opposed to a lot of the standard mounts included, because then you have to completely unscrew it, get out a tool and stuff. Anyways, so these are the mounts included. So this, I think, is for Fanatic probably. And this will be the SimiCube mount here. And these are really nice. Like, these are carbon fiber and they feel really well made. All the edges are nicely rounded. So quite impressive. So, I mean, you're getting what you pay for here, right? Like, everything that's part of this package is very high end. It looks like I have a remote, which I didn't know there was a remote included. Now I'm very curious as to what I'm gonna do with the remote. So I'm guessing I can change things on the display. So, geez, I didn't even know that was included. So when we go through the rest of the review, I'll get some info on why there's actually a remote here. So yeah, that is what's included in the box. It's very nicely packaged unit. You've got pretty much everything to go. It's plug and play. You don't need any more accessories or additional cables. So we'll get it mounted up to the rig, and I'll talk a little bit about the mounting. Hopefully it works with the Simcore dash mount, but if not, we'll just mount it to the base, and then we'll do some driving. We'll look at the software and go into a little bit more detail on how this thing actually performs. Okay, so I promised you I would show you what the remote does. So it's actually pretty cool. You can control a lot of functions like you would be able to on a display or monitor. So the first button is the power button. So there's actually no physical switch on the display itself. So this is the way to turn it off and on. And you do need to do that because when I shut off my computer, it doesn't actually turn off with the computer because it's connected to power. So I do have to use that power button, but it's pretty cool to have it on a remote. And I just keep this nearby on my rig now. This is to change inputs. There's a HDMI 1 and HDMI 2 input, though I don't see where the other input is for the HDMI unless I missed something, but I don't know why that says there's 2 inputs. I only see 1. And then this changes the picture mode and you can change the color temperature. Now there is a volume control as well. I haven't actually tested the speakers. I don't think they're probably any good, but just know that option looks like it's available. So yeah, that's the remote. So pretty cool. Takes 2 AAA batteries that weren't included, but not a big deal. So yeah, interesting. Now let's take a look at the mounting, like I said. So to explain things a little bit better, I have this Simcore LEV1 multi-dash mount that I really enjoy using, and I use it with my DDU5. So this is the plate, the mounting bracket, that comes with the Simcore LEV1, and it's compatible and lines up with the holes and the cutout for the DDU5 perfectly. It's a really good solution. And then what you do is these grooves here just slip into these thumb screws that are here. So all you have to do is loosen them to adjust it up and down, or loosen it more to take it out. Now, I tried actually putting this bracket on the back of the DDU10, but it just doesn't work with the sizing and doesn't allow me to mount it that way. So what I decided to do instead is, let me take this off and I'll show you. So I used the holes from the bracket that's included with the DDU10. The holes that I'm using are actually the holes that you should mount to use to mount it directly to the SimiCube wheelbase, but instead, because my Simcore mount is already mounted to the wheelbase, I just used these thumb screws to attach through these holes to keep it in place. So I don't know if you can see that there, just checking the camera. That's how it attaches. So, which makes it really easy to remove and swap out. Now, the only thing is you can't adjust the height or anything like that, but the mount itself here gives me more adjustability because I can angle these, I can add extensions. I can also adjust the height from the wheelbase attachment, but this just makes it a lot easier. Instead of having to get out a tool, I can just simply unscrew these thumb screws and then swap out the DDU10 for the DDU5. So, it's not the perfect solution, but I actually think it works quite well. I can't see of a better way to do this. Obviously, this isn't officially supported with the Simcore mount. It would be cool to see if Simcore maybe could come out with a bracket that's compatible with the DDU10. Then I could just buy maybe the bracket and I could then swap them out a lot easier. But you know what, this works fine for now. And it actually keeps it pretty much in place. Like, it's pretty tight, pretty secure. So I think it's a good solution if you have the Simcore dash mount. Otherwise, you would just be attaching the included bracket directly to the wheelbase, whether you're with have a Fanatic wheelbase or SimiCube. Let's take a look at the initial setup. So let me just switch over here. The first thing you'd want to probably do is, now if you don't have SimHub installed, that's a given. You would need to have SimHub installed, obviously. The next step likely would be to go to GRID Engineering's website. I've downloaded the LED profiles, which will correspond with the LEDs here on the display. And then I've also downloaded a couple of their LCD profiles. So this is a couple of their dashboard templates that they've made. I'm also a part of their Discord community, and there's actually a lot of sharing going on in the Discord community in terms of profiles for the wheel, like the MPX here, and also for their dashboards as well. So I downloaded a couple of those to try out. But so once those are done, the next thing, what you would need to do, probably one of the first steps is, because this connected to my computer through HDMI and USB, you need to connect it as a extended monitor, right? So if you're familiar with how to set up your display settings within Windows, you're just basically setting it up as an extended monitor, which is kind of cool because I realize now I can use this as the like fourth display in a way to display anything I want on my computer. So I may find some other ways to use it when I'm not racing, maybe to display like stats of my PC and stuff like temperature. But anyways, so once that's set up, we'll go back into SimHub. Now, what's different from the way you set up and configure the DDU5? So the DDU5 is configured through the devices tab here, because you would add it in as a Vocor display. Now, because this is connected through HDMI and is considered almost like a monitor, you end up not using this device screen. Now, the only negative I've seen so far of doing that is that I miss out on the automatic dashboard switching, which I use quite a bit. So if you're not familiar with this, within the devices section, you can have it, there's this check mark here to have SimHub remember the dashboard you used with the last car in the last game you played. It's super useful if you're switching between games and cars. You don't have to remember to switch the dashboard template every time. It will record what you used with that car last. So I haven't seen a way now to make this work with the DDU10, because it would be nice for it to just switch automatically. But I think once you set, you can set here for it to automatically populate a dashboard on startup. So the way to get the dashboard to display is you click on one of the templates here. So this is GRID's template here, and I'll click on the start button, and then you want to click on specific monitor. So I know you can't see this right now, but you would just click on this and then click on specific monitor, and that would load the dashboard. What you can also do is click on the auto button and have it run on startup on the secondary monitor. So I guess in that case, if you're just going to be using one template with the DDU10, you could have it automatically load that template whenever SimHub starts up, which kind of makes sense because I'll probably only be using one of these templates for the most part with this dash. So that kind of does solve the auto feature not being there in a way, but it doesn't work the same way it does with other dashboards through that device screen. Anyways, not a big deal in my opinion, but just something to be aware of. So I've loaded up the GRID dashboard. I've also downloaded a couple here. So what we'll do now is let me show you the LED settings. Just going to change the dash back here. And let me go back to SimHub. So what you got to do is go into the Arduino tab here. And this is similar for most of the dashboards that have built-in RGBs. So you'll want to make sure that you go to My Hardware and make sure that the SimLab DDU10 is connected. For me, it just did it automatically because SimHub will automatically scan for these devices, and it was already there when I turned it on. So, and then you want to go into RGB LEDs at the top tab, and this is where you'll load the profiles that we downloaded from the GRID website. So it's just a matter of clicking import profile and loading that file. So you can see I've already loaded their sort of universal profile that works with most games. You can even change all these effects. I kind of like all the effects that they've got here, but I may play around and customize my own profile. You can also change like the way the RPMs display. So you can have it go RSR style, which is outside to in, which I'm going to leave on for this because that's what you would see in the Porsche 992. But if you want the left to right style, you would just turn that on and turn that off. And then you've got your sort of more standard RPM. So yeah, it's nice to see that GRID has all these profiles installed or has all these profiles available. And it's just a matter of installing them. It makes it pretty easy if you just don't, you don't want to fiddle around with settings or making profiles. I find a lot of the ones that GRID's made, even for the MPX wheel, were great. But like I said, on the Discord community and GRID, I'm sure you can talk to somebody or get involved with the community, and people are sharing profiles from what I can see. So it's a really, really good community for getting more stuff that way. So that pretty much covers SimHub, covers the setup. Connecting everything was pretty easy. And then I'll show you the mounting, and then we'll go for a quick drive here with the Porsche 992, and I'll show you kind of how it looks from the GoPro cam from my perspective. And I'll tell you, it looks really cool. It really suits driving that car for sure. Okay, so we're in the Porsche 992 Cup car, which obviously what this dash is intended to replicate. So what better way to test it out than in this car? So as you can see, the dash is very clear. Like I can tell you, it might not show up on camera, but for me in person, the resolution is just insane. It's amazing. It's so detailed and crisp, and it feels like I have a real dashboard sitting in front of me. The size, like, yeah, it definitely is very noticeable at first, but I imagine it's one of those things that because I'm not used to it, it will kind of fade in the background. But it looks at home in this vehicle, but it may not make sense in other cars. But so yeah, let's go for a drive here and I'll kind of just give you some of my thoughts on this and talk a little bit more about what I think about this. Yeah, so the RGB lights look really nice, really clean, and bright, and you can adjust the brightness as you need. I think this is at about 50% here. Oh, locked up there. Let me just get going here. As usual, I'm terrible with driving with the GoPro, but I guess with practice I'll get better. So this particular dashboard is GRID's official template. A lot of information on one screen for sure. I almost feel like it's a little bit overkill for me, but for some people they may want all this information. But it's pretty amazing to have everything all on one screen like this. Now, another thing I was thinking of, and I saw this somewhere on Instagram, is, you know, you could even have a smaller dash here on top of your steering wheel, and then use this Porsche dash maybe to the side here as a, you know, secondary display, right? I know a lot of people do that. It would, you know, that could be a really good solution if you don't want to have something this big on top all the time. So I kind of like the idea of being able to switch between this now and the DDU5, depending on what type of car I'm driving. I mean, definitely when I'm driving this 992 Cup car, I kind of almost now will have to use it. It just really feels at home in this car and just kind of, I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm almost in the actual thing. Because I always felt with this particular car before, when using my other dash, I would usually just take it off and adjust the camera because it kind of looks silly when I had the smaller dash and it was in front of the larger in-game dash. You would see on either side, you know, it peeking out from behind, so now I kind of have the perfect solution for that. So yeah, I mean, look, here's what I think about this display. It's definitely not a must-have. I think if you're just looking to buy a dash display for the first time and you want something that is going to make sense for a number of different scenarios, I would probably go with the GRID DDU5. This is one of those things that, like I said earlier in the video, it's like you see this and you just know you want it. Would I buy this if it wasn't sent to me? Eventually, yes. But there's so many other things that, you know, depending on where I was within sort of my building out my rig, it might be one of the last things I buy, right? I might want to buy another wheel first before I get something like this. It sort of becomes one of those extra things that when you've got everything else, you're like, okay, I'm a Porsche fan. This looks cool. I want it, right? I would definitely maybe prioritize some other things first, but I don't know. I wouldn't be disappointed with this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty unique. I mean, in terms of build quality, functionality, you know, 5 out of 5, right? Everything works great, looks amazing. Like, I can't tell you how clear this screen is. You have to see it to believe it. You know, if in terms of a sim dashboard display, I mean, I think if you can only have one, I think I would just go with a 5-inch or 4-inch, right? Because that's just going to work with, it's going to make sense with the majority of the cars that you're going to be racing with, because you're going to be able to line it up in a way that it covers the in-game dash and it's going to be very immersive. You know, this doesn't probably make sense in every single vehicle except this Porsche 992. Not to say you can't use it, it just might, it looks funny to me because when I'm using a certain car in game, I kind of want to make sure everything looks the same or accurate. I'll usually match the dash to that car on my DDU5. So I kind of feel like I can't get the ultimate sort of accuracy with this dashboard. But if you want, you know, you drive the Porsche 992 all the time in iRacing, that's your go-to, and you know, this is what you want. I mean, this is it right here. This is the ultimate dashboard for driving this Porsche 992. And like I said, if you want to use it as a second display, I think that could be a fantastic idea to have it off to the left or to the right, depending on your rig. You know, you'd have to figure out mounting, but I'm sure that could be something you could figure out. So compatibility, because it is an external monitor within your computer, actually makes it really easy to use. Allows you to even put overlays onto it. So, you know, you can pretty much display anything on it that you can display on a monitor. So it just opens up a whole ton of possibilities for your sim racing setup, right? So we covered build quality. I think it's pretty clear what I think in terms of the build quality. Top notch, as all GRID products that I've tried are. That's something they do extremely well, and they haven't cut any corners with this whatsoever, which I appreciate for the price. So value for price, it's a hard one, right? I mean, it's pretty expensive here in Canada for something like this. I mean, you know, this is a unique product, so it's hard. There's nothing else. There's no other replica Porsche 10-inch display in the market. So in that sense, it's one of a kind. So it, like I said, it's like the RSR replica wheel. It's a collectible, it's a piece of jewelry. It's something you can be proud to put on your rig. So that is really subjective in terms of the value. For someone like me who's a Porsche fan, obviously this is really cool, and I mean, just having it here in my Porsche themed office, what else could you ask for, right? It's perfect. But like I said, if you're newer into sim racing and you're just looking for a good all-around dash, I think your money would be better spent. You know, I don't think you can go wrong with their GRID DDU5, but if that's out of your budget, there's surely a ton of dashboard options. But I think the GRID DDU5 is a really nice investment. I might do a review actually on that display itself, but a lot of the same quality that's in this is in the DDU5, but obviously at a smaller size and a little more affordable price point. So I think that sums it up. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Fantastic product, but it's definitely not a must-have. It's just something that you really want, and you know if you'll want it, and if you buy it, you're not going to be disappointed. It's so cool. You know, it's so well made. It's something you'll be proud to have on your rig. So that's how I feel about it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Feel free to disagree with me. Let's talk it out. If you are on the fence about this and have any questions about anything to do with it, let me know. I'd be happy to help you out. If there's something you're still wondering about before you pull the trigger on it, let me know. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up. It really helps recommend my content. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing for more sim racing content. And until the next one, stay safe, happy racing. Thanks for watching.